Just 5 months ago, I predicted how the 2023 NFL season would go. And when I made that video, I said I wanted to do a recap at the end of the year to see how my predictions held up. At the time, I felt good about my picks, but let's be honest, trying to predict one game is hard enough, let alone a whole season. A season that many people believe was one of the worst there has been. True or not, it was still an NFL season filled with intriguing storylines, breakout seasons for many young players in a year that saw records broken. The real question is how bad did I do at predicting it? To answer that question, I will be going through every single team, starting with the worst prediction all the way to the 3 unexpected teams I got perfect. Without any further ado, my worst prediction of the year was the Los Angeles Rams. I predicted them to go 3-14. They ended up at 10-7. I always thought Sean McVay was a good coach, but from how they played last year, I saw them as an expensive BMW that ran great the first year, winning a Super Bowl, but ended up being too expensive to maintain, causing last year to bleed into this year. However, they had great production from young players like Nakua, Kyron Williams, and Kobe Turner that helped them make a push later on in the year. I underestimated them badly, just like the next team I missed by 5 games, the Las Vegas Raiders. Like the Rams, I had them going 3-14. Actual record, 8-9. The Raiders were hit with a lot of adversity, starting the way I expected at 0-4, and leading to what feels like ages ago, the firing of Josh McDaniels in Week 13 at 5-8. From that point on, Antonio Pierce led them to an inspiring finish that I did not expect, having them miss the playoffs by only a couple games, unlike the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I predicted them at 4-13, while they went 9-8, winning their division for the 3rd year in a row. Although I did see Baker making a splash, I did not see him playing as well as he did, having the team rally behind him. They were not a team that jumped out to me roster-wise, but they found a way to play as a team with good production from the offense and defense, leading them to a playoff win against the Eagles. Now, as you've seen so far, my bad predictions have come from massively doubting teams. The next team, though, does a full 180 on that pattern. The Los Angeles Chargers. I had them going 10-7. They ended up at 5-12. Chargers are up in the running for being the most disappointing team in 2023 due to the yearly hype they brewed this offseason. This one was fueled by the acquisition of Kellen Moore in a rookie class with Quentin Johnson. I bit into it, but not fully. As I said before, the Chargers are always a walking question mark. They just could not find an answer to win close games, causing enough turmoil for Brandon Staley to be fired and Jim Harbaugh to be hired, bringing yet again some regular routine offseason hype for the Chargers. But the questions will still remain. A team with some future QB questions is the Minnesota Vikings. Predicted them to be 11-6, yet they finished 7-10. If Kirk Cousins doesn't go down along with Justin Jefferson, my prediction could have been a lot closer. Vikings had a bad start, coming together a little later on thanks to Kirk Cousins playing some of the best ball of his career, only for it to be ended early. That injury was a massive blow, and once Josh Dobbs' Pastronaut run ended, so did the hopes of the Vikings making a run. And there's only one team that can relate to the Vikings in a strange way: the New York Jets. I had the Jets at 11-6, just like the Vikings. They finished 7-10, just like the Vikings. And of course, lost their QB to an Achilles tear, just like the Vikings. I don't know how that happened, but it was a very eerie connection that I had to bring up. Anyways, in my opinion, the Jets stand alone at the top for the most disappointing season. We all felt the amount of hype that was built during the offseason just for it to evaporate after only 4 snaps. What looked like a chance at the Super Bowl turned into a chance of barely squeaking in the playoffs with a sliver of hope of Aaron coming back just in time, until that too was withered away. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions that was surrounding the QB position for the Jets. The QB position is a beacon of hope, but also a burden for whoever's in the position due to many narratives and storylines that will be promoted to bring them down. And those narratives do not waste any time, as we saw with the Houston Texans. I had them going 6-11. In turn, they finished 10-7. CJ silenced the narratives immediately that was attached to him. I personally thought CJ would be good, having the highs and the lows that come along with being a rookie QB. Instead, it was all highs and barely, if you even can call it, lows. He was put in a good situation with playmakers like Nico Collins, Dalton Schultz, Noah Brown, and Tank Dell, along with a young, promising head coach that helped turn around a defense. CJ thrived in his circumstances, unlike the #1 overall pick that played for the Carolina Panthers. My prediction was 6-11. Instead, 2-15. There were a lot of lows to Bryce Young's rookie year, which when you look at it wasn't too surprising when the Panthers cleaned house to get him, suspecting him to compensate for Christian McCaffrey and DJ Moore. I still think Bryce Young is a good QB. You cannot give up on him. He's just like any other, needs some pieces around him, which their draft selection might provide. Record-wise, they could have the #1 pick again, but that belongs to the Chicago Bears. I had them at 10-7. Instead, they ended up at 7-10. Out of all the picks on this list, this is the one I didn't trust my gut. Blocking out everything that everyone else was saying was my goal. But with the Bears, the media seeped in, swaying my prediction. On paper, adding DJ Moore with Justin Fields seemed promising and showed sparks at times. But the majority of the time, Fields and the team as a whole struggled, causing a disappointing season. And as we've seen, they are not the only team that shares the same sentiment. And there's another one that's right there with them. The Cincinnati Bengals. I predicted them at 12-5 compared to the actual record of 9-8. What's strange is for the second year in a row, they started off 0-2 until finally getting into a groove until week 11 when they joined 7 other teams losing their starting QB. Yet unlike the rest, didn't completely fold. Jake Browning from UW put together some great games, giving them some consistency at QB, unlike Desmond Ridder of the Atlanta Falcons. I predicted them at 4-13. They did better, going 7-10. Although they did better than I thought, it was a frustrating season all the same for the Falcons. They showed glimpses of being a good team, having great young talent, most notably in Bijan Robinson. However, they just could not click at the right time, and after 3 straight years of going 7-10, Arthur Smith was fired. Smith failed bringing back a winning culture in Atlanta, unlike Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions. I had them at 10-7, instead 12-5. What a year the Lions had, having a sneaky good defense paired with a hard-nosed, consistent offense. Who remembers when Ben Johnson pissed off a lot of fantasy owners in the beginning of the year with not utilizing Jahmyr Gibbs? However, that tandem between him and Montgomery proved to be a vital piece in their offense, taking a lot of pressure off of Jared Goff, who has gotten better every year since being kicked out the back door by the Rams. The Lions were different this year, with the Super Bowl appearance right in their grasp. Will Dan Campbell win Coach of the Year? Who knows? If so, he will be following up Brian Daboll of the New York Giants, who I had at 8-9. However, they went 6-11. Giants had confidence coming into this year after surprising many people last year, especially after having a productive offseason, re-signing Saquon, locking up Daniel Jones, and acquiring Darren Waller in free agency. Yet they were just off, piecing together a win here and there until they joined the QB casualties right alongside the Cleveland Browns. I had the Browns at 9-8, and yet 11-6 was it. Browns had a damn good team this year, earning some great wins over some of the best teams in the league, gaining a lot of respect, especially when somehow Joe Flacco was the one punching them into the playoffs, making many people believe he was going to pull a Nick Foles. That storyline, though, wrapped up pretty fast after falling apart in a crucial game. And a team that did that one game before was the Indianapolis Colts. I had them at 7-10. They went 9-8. I was excited to see how Anthony Richardson would do in his first year, and then bummed out after seeing that he would miss the remainder of the season. Yet the Colts turned out to be one of the most surprising teams, getting a head-to-head matchup for the division against the Texans, just to be one bad throw and one bad catch away from the playoffs. So disappointing, yet they have such a bright future ahead and just need to capitalize and not regress like the Jacksonville Jaguars. 11-6 was my prediction, and 9-8 was the correct one. Jags had such a turnaround season last year, being one of the most surprising teams then. I mean, who can forget about the 27-point comeback? Yet that magic didn't seem to carry over to this year. Jags didn't have a bad year by any means, but the regression they showed by not making the playoffs was a big disappointment for them, and one that I didn't see coming. Just like the struggles of the Buffalo Bills. My prediction was 13-4. They ended up at 11-6. Quite a strange year for the Bills, getting to a point of almost missing the playoffs. Fortunately for them, they found a way to get out of their funk and get to a place they could only dream of, a home game against the Kansas City Chiefs in the divisional round. But unfortunately, ended up falling short again in brutal fashion against a team that has heartbroken them before, the Kansas City Chiefs. Exactly like the Bills, I had them at 13-4, and instead 11-6 it was. The records weren't the only similarity. They found themselves too dropping wins throughout the season, causing me to believe that for once the Chiefs were going to be first round exits, or at least in the divisional round. But as it stands right now, and at the time of recording this, they are playing for their 4th Super Bowl ring. It truly goes to show the greatness in Patrick Mahomes this year and the Chiefs defense, along with the greatness in the Chiefs organization as a whole. It is truly crazy how they struggled all year and still found a way to slay the number 1 seed, the Baltimore Ravens. I had them 11-6. They went 13-4, having the best record this year. The Ravens did what I thought the Bills and Chiefs would do by dominating in the regular season. They blew out some of the top teams in the league. The defense was insane and the offense was electric, which is what makes them falling up short so disappointing. The Ravens, the Bills, and the Miami Dolphins all share the same pain. I had the Dolphins at 9-8, yet 11-6 was the correct choice. Quite a productive and flashy year for the Dolphins. So much talent and a great system that showcases it. Tyreek Hill dominated this year with the help of consistent QB play from Tua and play calling from Mike McDaniel, who has easily become one of my favorite coaches in the league. The Dolphins, though, are just quite not there yet, as we saw in the playoffs. But I feel they are close as I got to predicting the next group of teams. And why not start with my favorite, the Dallas Cowboys? I had them at 13-4, instead 12-5. Another great regular season. Dak had an MVP nominating season, CD broke records, Deron Bland broke records, and the team as a whole extended their longest home winning streak. But road bumps hit, little minor ones, like the embarrassing loss to the 49ers in the beginning of the year and the Bills at the end of the year. All of that came together, leading them to being the only home team to lose in the wild card round, having a big-time disappointing loss to the Green Bay Packers, who I had at 8-9, instead 9-8. That prediction seems close, but it's the difference in between a playoff berth or not. Packers had a very interesting year with a big question looming over them in the offseason. How would Jordan Love do? It got off to a little shaky start, but he, along with the rest of the team, found their stride at the end of the year, showcasing the greatness in their young talent and coaching staff. They had a great year, getting to a point many Packers fans might not have believed, almost beating the number 1 seed in the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers. I had them at 13-4, yet 12-5 was correct. The 49ers were a heavy favorite coming into the season, living up to it. As good as they were, though, it wasn't perfect, losing an ugly game against the Ravens. Ultimately, though, Brock Purdy answered the call again, leading a very talented roster to another Super Bowl appearance against the Chiefs. 49ers were the most consistent team in the NFC and found a way to win at the end of the year, unlike the Philadelphia Eagles, who I had at 12-5. They went 11-6. Eagles had one outstanding start at 10-1, but failed the true test of the NFL, being consistent and winning at the end of the year. Their downfall started with 2 big back-to-back losses against the 49ers and the Cowboys. After that, they could not recover, leading to a first-round exit that surprised nobody. The Eagles collapsed, causing drastic changes already in the offseason, like the hiring of Kellen Moore. For me, as a Cowboys fan, that was very surprising. but not as surprising as what the Denver Broncos did. I had them at 7-10. They went 8-9. The Broncos' biggest question was how Russell Wilson would pair with Sean Payton. What ended up happening was not what I expected. Russell actually played well, but that was shadowed by the defense's early struggles until the defense pulled it together, causing a run to happen, which surprised me and gave Broncos fans something to cheer for the first time in years. For it to spiral out of control and have Russell Wilson kicked to the side and benched for contract purposes. This is a bad play, in my opinion, by the Broncos, because what free agent is going to want to play there after they showed their true cards? Now, the Broncos are quarterbackless and have a lot of work to do, just like the Washington Commanders. I had them at 5-12. Instead, 4-13. The hiring of Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury is a surprising but reasonable move for the Commanders. Now, with their second overall pick, a likely candidate looks to be Caleb Williams. Time will tell, but for now, they are hoping that this is the beginning of a successful rebuild. Another team in similar circumstances is the Seattle Seahawks. I had them at 10-7. They finished 9-8. Hawks were a sneaky good team that felt well coached. Ultimately, though, they weren't good enough, causing them to make a massive, difficult change in parting ways with Pete Carroll, who has coached them since 2010, bringing them their first ever Super Bowl victory in franchise history. Seahawks are losing a great coach, but I think it was time for a change. 2010 is not only a special year for the Seahawks and Pete, but also the year of the first Lombardi Trophy to come to the New Orleans Saints. I predicted them at 10-7. They went 9-8. I thought that Derek Carr would be a decent fit for them and help them make the playoffs. Nevertheless, the offense struggled for the majority of the year, limping them above 500. They had their opportunities, just way too inconsistent. A team comparable to them was the Pittsburgh Steelers. I had them at 9-8. They finished 10-7. Similar to the Saints, I thought their QB, Pickett, would do well with a year of experience. However, they struggled massively, so much so that the fans started to chant for their OC to be out. Pickett didn't help his case either, because once he got cleared after the ankle injury, he found Rudolph in the helm, clinching the Steelers to the playoffs. One cool fact about the Steelers is Mike Tomlin is now the longest current tenured head coach for one team ever since the parting of ways with Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. Patriots are the first team I got perfect at 4-13. It was a long year for the Pats, whether it's being Bill's coaching style starting to fade, the drafting, Tom Brady not being there, whatever the case is, it's clear to say that the Patriots have regressed massively ever since the departure of Tom Brady, and now have finally hit rock bottom. Most of the QBs I grew up watching dwindled out of the league the past 5 to 6 years. And what's crazy is it's the coaches now that are starting to dwindle away. One other team that's joining the 8 others from moving on from their coaches is the Tennessee Titans. Titans were my second perfect fit at 6-11. Ever since Mike Vrabel was hired, it seemed the Titans could compete with anyone. This year had the same feel, just not the results, causing Titans fans to witness a lot of change this offseason, and only time will tell if it works out. And now lastly but not least, the Arizona Cardinals. They're the last team, and I predicted them perfectly at 4-13. It was a tough year for the Cardinals. They had a coaching change and were missing their franchise QB for half of this season. They showed some life and some promise for next year, and for next year, they seem to be all bought in to Kyler Murray. Who knows? One good pick and another offseason for the coaching staff, this Cardinals team could make a bounce back. And there it is. That is my recap. I spent a lot of time on this video. I wanted to give an explanation on each team and give them a fair justice, but it dragged the video on a little bit, so I hope that someone at least enjoyed and made it this far. If you did, I truly appreciate it. And I'm curious to see how you thought the NFL season went. Did you think it was a little bit downer because of the injuries, or did you enjoy it? At the end of the day, what a season it was, and damn, did it really fly by fast. Hopefully less injuries next time, and hopefully I can predict it a little better. I had 8 teams that I missed by 4 or more games, 3 teams I missed by 3, 9 teams I missed by 2, 9 other teams I missed by 1, and 3 teams I got perfect. So next year, I'm going for at least 5 teams perfect. Yeah, it ain't happening. It's not happening. Good luck to your team next year. And if you have any suggestions, because I'm going to be doing this next year about the predictions and a recap. So if you have any suggestions of how I can improve these type of videos, let me know. Peace.